how trainable is one's power curve? And actually, can you first explain what a power curve is? Nate, can you explain what a power curve is?
Yeah, power curve is a graphical representation of how many watts you do for what duration. And they usually on the bottom have an exponential like curve, or sometimes they don't, depending on what you do. So on ours is really cool because you can look at just the sprint or the endurance or all, because usually if you look at all of it, you lose a lot of detail at different levels. So what James is saying is that how much can I increase different parts of my duration? And I'm assuming James thinks there's probably some kind of genetic aspect that he's naturally good at. And he wants to know what he can do to change different parts of it,
Yep.
if it's even possible.
Great explanation. Yep. So he says, I realize, and just for a visual representation for people that might not be able to go through with that, think of something that starts up really high and then it hockey sticks down low, just because we're able to do much more power for a short duration as that duration gets shorter, right? And then it starts to flatten out as the duration gets longer. So he says, I realize that we can functionally train sprint efforts to boost the steep end. And if an athlete spends a lot, like 16 to 18 hours a week of time between zone 2 and sweet spot, is it possible that I would have a flatter power curve than normal? I find that I can function for a very long time, about 4 to 8 hours between zone 3 and sweet spot riding, but struggle to push over FTP, in large part because I rarely train above FTP. There we go again with the whole, we're good at what we do, right?
Yep.
So he says, I'm an ultra endurance athlete, and last year my shortest race was 5 hours and my longest one was 25. Ugh. That's longer than a day. I know we all know that, but I'm sorry, I'm just talking myself down from a ledge there, just hearing that. So he says, so the low and slow end of the curve is where I tend to focus. Is my curve truly flat, or am I just, and he says, am I just a wimp when it comes to working above FTP? Once again, probably not a wimp, but just once again, we're good at what we do, right? So Chad, the question, how trainable is a power curve? Let's go after it.
Yeah, in a word, very. It's incredibly trainable. So we can look at it from a couple different perspectives. And let's start with just the muscle fibers. So let's get down into the nitty gritty. Not going to take it all the way down to the cells. Let's step up a bit, look at the fibers. And I want to say from the outset here, regardless of your genetic predisposition, which is, the reason a lot of people talk themselves out of things before they even try them, you can in fact target specific fibers. And this means you can target specific energy systems. And when you target those fibers, you can also target adaptations within those fibers. So one fiber isn't capable of one thing. Our fibers are on a spectrum and they can do all things to some degree. So to elaborate on that, if you do a bunch of aerobic work, like you said, the Z2 on up to sweet spot, you're going to get more aerobic adaptations. But what people don't realize is you can get those aerobic adaptations in fast twitch anaerobic fibers. Because again, there are components, aerobic components in these fast twitch fibers. And this is the very essence of slow force work. This is why you'll have a sprinter doing low force work early on in the season, because they're trying to train some aerobic influence into their fast twitch fibers. These guys have to be able to get to the line before they can unleash that sprint. Then if you look at a rider who does more anaerobic work, obviously they're going to get more anaerobic adaptations, but these anaerobic adaptations can carry to those intermediate fibers, those fibers that carry a lot of characteristics of both the slow twitch and the fast twitch. And this is going to push them a little more anaerobically inclined. It's a specific adaptation to impose demand on cilia. I mean, this is how the body works. This is how our muscles work. If there's a dearth of recruitment work, you're not doing neuromuscular innervation work, you're going to have a sucky peak power output. You're not going to be able to elicit or generate a big peak torque. If you don't do much anaerobic capacity work, you're probably going to have a curve that plummets or maybe just starts slow and stays low. If you haven't trained it and if you haven't done it, it's not going to make it into your data magically. You have to at some point do it. And if you're not very capable of doing it, well, it's not going to be a big departure from your lower end power. Then if we look at things from the perspective of fueling, and this is an easy get, especially considering the popularity of going low carbohydrate or doing fasted rides. Yes, you get aerobic adaptations. And namely, we're targeting greater mitochondrial biogenesis, which basically means a greater ability to metabolize fat and then make a bit more energy out of the sugar that we ingest, but it also really limits your workout options during that workout. And on top of it, you're probably costing yourself a bit of muscle. You're going to metabolize some amino acids. Some of those amino acids are going to come from your muscle. The longer you do it, the more are going to come from your muscle. So if you're big on fasted rides, you have to make sure you're replenishing in excess your protein. And then when it comes to high carbohydrate riding, which, is basically necessary, this opens up the door to a myriad of workout options, but it limits your fat utilization. In a workout, as soon as you ingest carbohydrate, put sugar into the system, it shuts off your fat burning capabilities. Your body's, it's shifting focus. The two don't play nice. And if you have this consistently high carbohydrate intake over time, you run the risk of becoming a carbohydrate reliant rider. But these are all things that can be managed. You just have to recognize that this is to use the term again, the corner you're painting yourself into.
One thing to add to that too is, once again, if we're chasing performance, right? This is the important thing when you talk about fueling strategies and chasing performance. If performance is the goal, you have to make sure that you're fueling the work.
Relative to what you're looking to accomplish, yes.
Yep, exactly. Another way to express a power curve too is that your power curve doesn't define you as an athlete. Like you just said, Chad, there's a lot of adaptations that can be made across even people with highly one-sided fiber type makeups, whatever they have. Your power curve doesn't define you as an athlete. It just shows your work in many cases. That's just, sure, you may have a facility toward one specific type of work, but that doesn't mean that you can't train the other one. So really, you should view your power curve as just, a report card almost, like a showing of where you've been, what you've been working on, and this is where you're at. So the more you change it, the more you'll see a difference.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that I like that because I think it's more about shaping your power curve intentionally to fit your goals. So don't think of it as like, oh, I was born with this kind of power curve. It's like, shape the power curve to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. So if your events are all ultra endurance, what do you really need? I mean, and then that begs the question, what does it mean to be a quote unquote wimp above FTP? If you're not training those systems, then when you do tap into those systems, you're going to have a higher perceived exertion because you're not used to those specific kinds of sensations. It's going to feel harder because you haven't been training those. So what? Do you really need them? Like, I am a total wimp at running, and I am A-okay with that. I'm not doing running events. Like, I am good with that, but it's just, what is it that you want? What's the, right. What is it that you want? What is, you may not be great at those systems above their threshold, but if you don't really need them, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Great way to put it.
And do keep in mind, this is all we're saying is that specificity matters. It does, but I think what a lot of people miss is that it matters psychologically too, because you can gain a lot of improvement from simple familiarity. You expose yourself to a workout, say it's 30-30s, something you haven't done before, and it's miserable the first time. But next week, or maybe even a couple of days later, you do the same workout, it's more tolerable, just like that, because now you know what to expect. And that's entirely psychological. Nothing physiological has happened in that span of time that's going to amount to any real benefit to that workout. But you understand the pain. You're even just slightly more familiar with it than you were, and you have a better workout because of it.
If you like that video, you should subscribe to our channel. There's more where that came from. And even like the video down below with a thumbs up or leave us a comment.
If you want to see race analysis videos, click right over here. And if you want to get your coaching questions answered, click over here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. Trust us.
Just trust us.
We guarantee it.
Oh, yeah. Or your money back.
It's true. Take us up on it.